Good evening to you all. Today, we're talking in the fourth episode about Surah At-Tawbah, and it's titled The Priests and Monks. O you who have believed, indeed many of the priests and monks consume people's wealth unjustly and hinder them from the way of Allah. And those who hoard gold and silver and do not spend it in the way of Allah, give them tidings of a painful punishment. That's the meaning. The priests and monks take bribes from the Jews and Christians who follow them, and they hoard gold and silver and do not spend their wealth in the way of Allah. These people will have a painful punishment in the hereafter. The source is Fath al-Qadir by al-Shakani. The question here is, why does Allah ask the priests and monks to spend their wealth in His cause when they don't even acknowledge Him or believe in Him in the first place? So, what is He saying? He's saying they consume people's wealth unjustly. All right, that's clear enough. So, their sources of wealth are illegitimate to begin with. And then what does He say? He says, and they do not spend it in the way of Allah. But if this wealth is forbidden in the first place, that's number one. Number two, they don't believe in Allah to spend their wealth for His sake. And if they did spend in the way of Allah, would it be accepted? The second question in this verse, it says they hoard gold and silver, and that's a dual form. Then it goes on to say, and do not spend it, so is it do not spend it, or do not spend both of them? The point to note here is that in the way of Allah is mentioned twice in the verse. On the day when it will be heated in the fire of hell, and their foreheads, sides, and backs will be branded with it. This is what you hoarded for yourselves, so taste what you used to hoard. The meaning here is that on the day of judgment, fire will be heated up on that wealth, and it's clear that it's metallic money, because if it were paper money, it would obviously just burn up in the fire and turn to ash. Fire will be heated up on that wealth, and it will be placed on the sides, foreheads, and backs of the priests and monks who hoarded it, and it will say to them, I am the wealth you were stingy with, and this punishment is the result of what you hoarded. The source is Zad al-Masir fi ilm al-Tafsir by Ibn al-Jawzi. The question here is, what is the wisdom behind detailing the punishment that the priests and monks will face on the day of judgment in the fire of hell? So it says, their foreheads, sides, and backs will be branded with it, and I don't really know why these three specifically, and the wealth itself will speak and say to them, this is the reward for what you hoarded. But what about their legs, then? Indeed, the number of months with Allah is 12 months in the Book of Allah, from the day He created the heavens and the earth. Of these, 4 are sacred. That is the upright religion, so do not wrong yourselves during them. And fight the polytheists altogether as they fight you altogether. And know that Allah is with the righteous. The meaning is that the number of months in the year, as stated in the preserved tablet, is 12 months. And this number, this specification of the months of the year, is something people need in their dealings, in their pilgrimage, in their prayers, and in settling their debts. Allah set these 12 months on the day He created the heavens and the earth. So, the sun and the moon, when Allah created them, through them the months and days are known, including the 4 sacred months, which are Dhu al-Qidar, Dhu al-Hijjah, Muharram, and Rajab. Why are these 4 months called the sacred months? Because Allah forbade fighting during them, so He tells them, do not disobey Allah's commands or commit what He has forbidden during these 4 months. And fight the polytheists as they fight you, generation after generation. Whenever they come against you to fight, you fight them except for those who pay the jizya while humbled. Here, the verse says, do not fight. The source is Majma al-Bayan in the interpretation of the Quran by al-Tabasi. The question here is, what is the wisdom behind the repetition of the word Allah 3 times in the verse? Indeed, postponing the sacred months is an increase in disbelief, by which those who disbelieve are led astray. They make it lawful 1 year and unlawful another year, to adjust the number of months Allah has made sacred, thus making lawful what Allah has forbidden. The evil of their deeds has been made attractive to them, and Allah does not guide the disbelieving people. The meaning is that the Arabs used to fight during the sacred months that God had forbidden. Why? Because by their nature, they were people of raids, invasions, and wars, and it was hard for them to go 4 months without launching an attack. They had to carry out raids, so they made fighting during the sacred months permissible for themselves, and forbade fighting during the months when it was actually allowed. In other words, they did the opposite. God told them not to fight during the 4 sacred months, but they fought during those months and refrained from fighting in the other months instead, and so on. Then, they even made pilgrimage obligatory at a time other than its appointed time. God has set a specific time for Hajj, but they performed it at a completely different time. This is considered disbelief and misguidance. It was Satan who fueled their desires. And naturally, God does not guide those who disobey his commands. The source: Majma al-Bayan fi Tafsir al-Quran by al-Tabrasi. The question says, and God does not guide the disbelieving people. So, who does God guide then? He guides the believing people, as it says, what God has forbidden, pay close attention to the underlined part. And then, again, it says, what God has forbidden. What is the wisdom behind repeating what God has forbidden twice and mentioning the word God 3 times in the verse? O you who have believed, what is the matter with you that when you are told, go forth in the cause of God, you cling heavily to the earth? Are you satisfied with the life of this world rather than the hereafter? But the enjoyment of worldly life compared to the hereafter is nothing but little. The reason this verse was revealed is that the Prophet learned that the Romans were making preparations to attack Medina. So he called upon the people to fight. He told them, let's strive in jihad to defend our country. Some responded to the call, but some hypocrites and many of the Bedouins stayed behind and didn't go with him. Not only that, they even encouraged others not to go out as well. Anyway, the Prophet took those who agreed and went out with him, and he and his army reached Tabuk. But they didn't find the Romans there. They didn't find anyone from the Romans at all. So they stayed there for a few nights, then returned to Medina again. Then the verse was revealed. So what does it mean? The verse reproaching those who stayed behind and didn't accompany Prophet in expedition to Tabuk. This happened 9th year of Hijrah, Prophet's last expedition. And it questions the believers, or rather, those who refused to go out with the Prophet, even though they were believers. Of course, it asks them, why did you hesitate to go out for jihad with the Prophet to fight the Romans, to raise the word of God, and to support his Prophet? Why did you choose to incline towards comfort and settle for the earth, desiring the fleeting pleasures of this world and disliking jihad? The source here is Al-Wazit fi Tafsir al-Quran by Sheikh Mohammed Sayyid Tantawi. The question here is, what is wrong with you? This is God asking. What is wrong with you that when you are told, go forth in the cause of God, you cling heavily to the earth? But isn't God already aware of their reaction, that they would be reluctant and inclined towards comfort, and that they wouldn't go out with the Prophet? The second question here is, Are you satisfied with the life of this world instead of the hereafter? So, what does this mean? I mean, if he had said, "Are you satisfied with the life of this world instead of the hereafter?" I would have understood it, but he says, "Are you satisfied with the life of this world from the hereafter?" What is the meaning of this sentence? I haven't been able to find its meaning, even though I've looked it up with more than 20 scholars. The second point, what does he say? So, what is the enjoyment of the life of this world compared to the hereafter? Is there any worldly enjoyment in the hereafter? The pleasures of this world end with its end, with a person's death. How can there be worldly enjoyment in the hereafter? The point to note here is that the life of this world is mentioned twice, and the hereafter is also mentioned twice. If you do not go forth, he will punish you with a painful punishment and will replace you with another people, and you will not harm him at all. And Allah is capable of all things. The meaning: if you do not hasten, and here the address is to the believers, to strive in jihad, Allah will punish you in this world and the hereafter, and he is fully capable of granting victory to his prophet over his enemies. So if you go forth, he will grant you victory through your efforts. But if you hold back, then God may bring forth other people in your place in Medina. In other words, people other than you, or even angels, could be sent to grant victory. So that you don't imagine that victory can only happen through you or depends on you. The source is Mafati al-Gaib by al-Razi. The question here is about the phrase illa tanfiru. It means, if you do not go forth, or if you do not go out with the Prophet for jihad, Allah will punish you and replace you with another people. The question here is, doesn't Allah already know whether they will go forth or not? Illa tansuruhu. For Allah has already given him victory when those who disbelieved drove him out, when he was one of two in the cave, when he said to his companion, "Do not grieve, indeed, Allah is with us." So Allah sent down his tranquility upon him and supported him with soldiers you did not see, and made the word of those who disbelieved the lowest, while the word of Allah is the highest. And Allah is mighty, wise. The meaning is, if you do not support the Prophet. And here, the words are directed to the believers. If you go out with him to the expedition of Tabuk, Allah will grant him victory just as he did when the disbelievers of Mecca wanted to kill him, so he and Abu Bakr hid in the cave. The Prophet said to Abu Bakr, "Do not grieve, O Abu Bakr. Indeed, Allah is with us." And the spider spun a web over the entrance of the cave as a disguise, and in this way they were saved. Then the Prophet and Abu Bakr migrated to Medina, and Allah sent down his tranquility upon him until he felt at peace. Allah also supported him with the believers in the battles of Badr, the Confederates, and Hunain, and he made the word of associating partners with Allah the lowest, and the word of faith is the highest. The source here is Bar al-Ulum by al-Samarkandi. Also, pay attention. The word illa here means if not or unless. If you do not support him, or unless you support him. The question here is, doesn't Allah know whether they will support him or not? The point to note here, what is the wisdom behind repeating the word Allah 4 times in the verse? Go forth, whether lightly or heavily equipped, and strive with your wealth and your lives in the cause of Allah. That is better for you, if you only knew. The meaning is that when you hear the call to jihad in the path of Allah, and here the message is also to the believers, hurry to answer the call with yourselves and your wealth, young and old, riders and walkers, poor and rich. Everyone should answer the call. The meaning is that when you hear the call to jihad in the path of Allah, and here the message is directed to the believers. Hasten to answer the call with yourselves and your wealth, whether you are young or old, riders or walkers, poor or rich. Some people say that this verse, 41, was abrogated by verse 91 from the same surah At-Tawbah, which says, "There is no blame on the weak, nor on the sick, nor on those who do not find anything to spend. There is no blame if they do not go out," so 91 abrogated 41. Other people say no, it was actually verse 122 of At-Tawbah that abrogated it, which says, "It is not for the believers to go forth all at once." The source here is Maralim al-Tanzil by al-Baghawi. The question here is that in verses 38, 39, and 40, and go back and read them all, there is blame and reproach for the believers for not going out with the Prophet in the first place. Verse 41 calls on them to strive again and tells them, "Go forth, whether light or heavy." Didn't God already say before that if you don't go out with him, God will replace you with other people or with angels? Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next episode.